You're listening to the Speaking Tongues podcast. I'm your host, El Charisse. Each week, I sit down to a conversation with multilinguals where we discuss and celebrate language, life, and culture through our own perspectives. Episode 121, Speaking Bengali and Italian. Hello, language lovers. Thank you for joining me for this new episode of Speaking Tongues, the podcast in conversation with multilinguals. I, El Charisse, am back this week after an extended hiatus with Urmi to talk about her languages of Bengali and Italian. In this episode, Urmi talks with us about growing up between two cultures and languages, being of Bengali heritage while growing up in Italy. She tells us about being among the first Bengali families living in Sicily and observing the growth of the community in Italy over the years. We talk about using both of these languages on a daily basis and the challenges that come with blending Bengali and Italian culture. Urmi talks with us about being a third culture kid and how this term resonates in her life. She tells us about her passions of empowering others in exploring their cross-cultural identities, and she even tells us about how life in Montreal allows her to use her languages and express her culture in new ways. We also have a moment to talk about food, and just a side note, if you want to hear more conversations about food that are usually not included in these episodes, head on over to my Patreon where you can find segments just like this about food from around the world. Thank you to Urmi for sharing bits of your languages and culture with all of us. If you enjoy episodes of Speaking Tongues, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the Speaking Tongues podcast on Apple Podcasts, and like and subscribe on YouTube so that other language lovers like ourselves can find the show. And if you've been a longtime listener of the show or even a recent listener, you can now pledge ongoing support for the show on buymeacoffee.com or on patreon.com. And as you know, as you remember, I hope you remember that I wrote a book. My food zine of international language and cuisine, Taste Buds Volume 1, is available now for purchase. Check social media for the sneak peek inside the book and make sure you purchase one for yourself and one for your friends. Links to all platforms are in the show notes. Okay, let's chat. Welcome back to another episode of Speaking Tongues. I'm here today with Urmi. How are you today, Urmi?
I'm good, and you?
I'm fantastic. I'm so excited to talk to you today. And we're going to talk a little bit about your languages and your story. So I like to start each episode with the same question, and that is, what is your first language and which languages have you learned to speak?
So my very, very first language was Bengali, because my parents are from Bangladesh. I grew up in a Bengali household. So that's the first language that I have actually used at home. However, I was born and raised in Italy, so the language that came next was Italian. And I would say that I started to speak Italian at home as well once I started to master it. So I speak Bengali, I speak Italian, and then of course I learned a couple of more languages. I learned English because it's mandatory back in Italy to learn English as a second language. And then I also studied a couple of more languages. I basically learned how to speak French. And then we also had to take another class in language, and I took German. I would say German was my fifth language, but I actually lost it on the way because I never went back to practice it. But however, I knew how to speak it. And then after I moved to Canada, I actually took Spanish courses, and I actually took like advanced Spanish courses. And so I would say like Spanish is not the language that I know like fully, but it's enough for me to understand when I listen to podcasts, when I watch videos. I understand pretty well because of the similarity with Italian. And also because of the classes that I took.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's 6 languages?
I wish. I say four and a half because I took German out of the picture.
Yeah. How long has it been since you studied any German? Is it like completely lost or like do you get words here and
Long
there?
time. It's been 12 years. So
Hmm.
I completely forgot the language. I actually knew how to speak it really well. I also did a certification in the language, which ascertains that I know the language, but honestly, I didn't practice it. I didn't think I was going
Oh my
to need it. So
gosh.
I completely lost it. I remember nothing of it.
Oh
Nothing.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So tell me about living in Italy, growing up in Italy, what kind of languages did you hear spoken? Well, in your home, you said you spoke Bengali and you spoke Italian. How about in your community? What languages did you hear spoken at all?
It depends on what you mean by community. Like, do you
Okay.
mean like my school friends, or do you mean when I was among Bengali people? Because I belong to two different communities.
Yeah, tell me about that.
So basically, in the Bengali community, the main language spoken was Bengali. But I actually, because a lot of the kids were born in Italy, we would mix both language. So we would speak Italian and Bengali. But I would say that the predominant language was actually Italian because it was better for us to express ourselves. However, with our parents, we were only speaking Bengali. And then if I'm talking about my Italian community, of course, we were just speaking strictly Italian. There was no other language. And Italy in itself, like when you go there, people just speak Italian. And of course, depending in which part of Italy you're from, you also speak the dialect. And also depending on which part of Italy you're from, you also have a different accent, even though you speak the same language. But
Yeah.
mainly I would say that it was just Italian with my Italian friends.
Okay. What part of Italy were you living in?
I was living both in the south and in the north. So I was born in Sicily. I
Hmm.
lived there for 10 years and then we moved to the north and I was living in Milan.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to tell you something. I love Sicily with all
Yeah.
of my heart and soul. I think it's such a beautiful place. And I went there for a vacation like years ago. And I think all the time, like, why did I leave? Like, why, why did I come back to New York City? I should have stayed longer. What I love about Italy is how regional the country is and how different it can be from region to region. So specifically, I guess, in Sicily, like how did you notice that? How did you notice the Sicilian culture specifically compared to when you moved up north? And how did that differ? How did your communication differ? And how did speaking to people differ? Or how did you have to change in any way to kind of like, I don't want to say fit in, but kind of relate to a northern region?
I was very small actually. So there is only a little that I remember about Sicily because I left when I was 9 years old.
Okay.
And so there is really little that I remember. I just have really nice memory about the whole lifestyle in Sicily because so one of the things is that the big main difference between the south and the north is the temperature and the weather. So in Sicily, for instance, it never snows. And so I remember like when I used to live in Sicily, I remember how we would have like open markets and people would sell like fish and fresh food. And then everything was on this by the sea. So people would go and spend the day at the sea, or
Mhm.
we would meet at the piazza, which is like a big open area. I would say like the translation is like plaza, but I'm not even sure if it's the right word, where people would gather together and people really like enjoyed living their life. But that's the thing about living in Sicily, is that it's not as developed as the north, so there is like lack of job opportunities in that sense. And I remember that when I moved to Milan, my first reaction was seeing the snow. So that was something very beautiful for me. I was
Mhm.
10 years old when I saw the snow for the first time. um, and I remember thinking like there is a better opportunity in the north because of the fact that you have like all these other countries in the neighborhood, like you have Germany, you have also you have France, you have like Spain on the side. And so I just remember that the education was much better on the north and there was a better lifestyle. So those are the things that I remember from when I moved from Sicily to the north, because I was like, honestly, I was really really small.
I remember seeing a lot of South Asian families when I was in Sicily, and I remember, like, of all the times I'd gone to Italy, I that was maybe the first time I'd seen, like, so many people. I was in Palermo, so many people who
That's where I was born.
yeah. And I just thought that was so interesting, and I thought it was so cool because of all the times I'd been to Italy before, like I'd seen, people from all over the world in like different places, but I felt that such like South Asian presence in Sicily, and it made me I remember like texting my friends back here. I was like, "You're not going to believe this. This is amazing." And it's just like to see like this community in a place where I wasn't expecting to see it. And, I think the way that people have portrayed Sicily to me before I went was that it was like very like Italian or very Sicilian specifically. So seeing like people of different ethnicities and like that community, it just made my heart so happy. Like I loved it. I love seeing that.
It's interesting that you see that because the last time I've been to Sicily was in year 2000, and that
Hmm.
was the last time. But I can tell you that when I was growing up, we did have a very big community of South Asian people. And actually, my dad was one of the first people, one of the first basically to move from Bangladesh to Sicily because it was easy to move there. And he
Yeah.
was one of the first from that, the whole Bengali community. People would go either to Sicily or they would go to Rome.
Mm.
And then little by little, more and more people started to come to Sicily. So we had a very big community of like South Asian people, and by South Asian, I mean like Indian, Sri Lankan. I also mean Bengali people. You also have Pakistani people. However, what happened after, I would say, is that people started to spread out all over Italy, and a lot of the people actually started to move to the north because of what I was saying before, that there was a better life, there was a better job opportunity up on the north. So people started to move like to Rome. People started to move to Milan, Trentino, Venice, and of course we had also very big community of South Asian people in the north, but in the last years, actually people started to leave Italy. And now I don't know how many South Asian people are there because all the people that I knew from when I was a kid, they actually moved to UK
Oh.
because I would say there is a more sense of security when it comes to jobs.
Mm.
And so and it's not just South Asian people that moved to UK, also Italian people moved to UK or moved to like in other parts of the country of the world.
Yeah.
Because I have spoken to some people that used to live in Sicily. These are Italian people. They also moved to UK, and they were telling me that there is a better life outside of Italy. So now I think it's a bit reduced the number of South Asian people that live there. But back in the days, we had like a lot more.
Yeah. So tell me about, growing up in a South Asian family, in Italy, and how you were able to, I guess your family or your community, your Bengali community, how were you able to hold on to traditions, or how were you able to mix them with the Italian traditions or the lifestyle? Like how did these things blend, or how did they take on worlds of their own?
So it was very hard for me, actually. It was very hard because I never felt like I was fitting any of the two worlds. I know, like, when I was growing up, I was mainly surrounded by a lot of Italian people. All my friends were Italian, and I was mainly hanging out with them. But then when I would go at home, everything was strictly Bengali. Like, my parents would tell me to eat like Bengali food. I remember I would complain when I would not see pasta on the table, and we would like speak Bengali. They basically tried to teach me a little bit about their culture, but I struggled a lot because of the fact that I was growing up in such a like open-minded and Western society versus the one that was at home, which was a little bit more strict and conservative. So I struggled a lot in trying to find a fit, and this is something that I struggled like my whole life because I never felt like I was Bengali enough. I never felt I was Italian enough. So it was a big, big, big struggle for me, especially also because even for my Italian friends, it was new to them. They never met someone that was different from them. They
Mm.
have never met someone that was like Bengali, and they would ask me things like, "Oh, why can you not go out with us?" And I never knew what to tell them because I was like, my parents are not allowing me because this is not seen by the culture, by the
Right.
community. So I
Right.
struggle a lot in that sense. And I would say that I feel like I was always being myself when I was around Italian people because I could express my opinion. I just had an open vision about things. But I remember that when I would be at home, I had to like think twice before saying something, because it was something that
Hmm.
was probably going against the values of the South Asian culture.
Yeah. What would be an example of something that you felt like you had to say differently in your house than you would with your friends?
So for instance, I'm gonna give you this simple example of like going out with my friends. They would ask me like, "Why can you not come to our place? Why can you not go out?" And I would just tell them that I wasn't allowed to. And at home, I would never ask for the permission. I would
Mm,
never do that because I knew that it was a no to begin with. When I became a bit more older, I did ask for permission, but it was just way too many questions, and there were my parents. I remember being way too concerned about like, or are there going to be boys around you? And often I had to lie about it because there were boys, but they were like not my friends. They were like someone else's brother, and they just happened to be there. And so this is, for instance, not seen right, but for me, it was okay to be around boys because I wasn't doing anything bad. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So that was like one of the things that I kind of like avoided in a way.
Yeah, it's definitely a difference in cultural values and in cultural, so that's like I imagine that's tricky to navigate and, I think probably it makes you grow up faster in a way. Do you think?
I don't know if it makes you grow up faster. I think it just makes you realize things, and it just makes you reflect on things, and you just start having question marks, being like, was this okay? Was this not okay? So I wouldn't say it makes you grow faster. I just think it makes you think a little bit more about
Yeah.
the way things are done.
Yeah, because I mean, if I mean, I grew up the same way. My parents were like, no, no sleepovers, no staying out late, no, who's gonna be there? Do I know their mom? Like I grew up like similarly, and I feel like it makes you just um like think about the consequences more than your friends do, because your friends are kind of like, oh, it'll be fine, whatever, and you're like,
Yeah,
no, because my parents will kill me if
yeah,
I if this
yeah,
happens.
no,
So,
exactly.
yeah. Um, Tell me about, I guess among your peers, your Bengali peers when you were growing up, did everybody speak Bengali and Italian, or were there any kids who maybe pushed away Bengali to speak Italian or pushed away Italian to speak Bengali more? Like, how did that language dynamic, work with, the kids that you were growing up with?
So here's the thing with me. I was probably the first one that was like the first Bengali girl that was born in Italy. At least according to my dad, that's the story, that I was the first one. So I take that as like, yeah, okay, sure.
You're a
And
pioneer.
yeah, I guess I'm a pioneer. And so what happened is, like, among all the people, like, since I was the oldest one, the one that came after were much younger,
Mm,
like maybe 5 years younger than me, and they all went to school. And so we would just automatically speak Italian. It was just automatic, like we wouldn't think twice. And all the people that I knew, they all spoke both languages. And so we would like switch from English from Italian to Bengali just like that as the words were coming to our mouth. We didn't, it wasn't something that we like, it wasn't something that we thought about before doing. It just came automatic. Because even with my sister, for instance, we just strictly speak Italian, like strictly speak Italian. With my cousin, it's the same thing. So I would say that for us, the main way to communicate was just in
in
Italian.
Italian.
Like it was mainly in Italian. It's just strictly with our parents would speak Bengali because they didn't know the language properly. They didn't go to school there. And often what would happen is that we would also mix Italian with them because some of the words that we know in Italian, we do not know them in Bengali, for instance. So
Mhm. I was wondering also if there was a thing where like parents, say I love these things, but if there's a thing where like, your parents speak Bengali and they're not really speaking Italian, and they maybe does Bengali become the language of discipline? Does Bengali become the language of like when they're serious? and they want to communicate, or like if they don't want you to know something, are they speaking Bengali? Like I always wonder about that dynamic, like with anyone who's grown up in a similar circumstance, like what that was like, because I don't have that experience, and I'm just so fascinated by it. I hope you don't think I'm asking like disrespectfully, but I
No, of
just
course.
um yeah, like does Bengali become more authoritative of a language in your home because of that dynamic, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, it was in a way, because I also remember that whenever we were scolded, it was mainly in Bengali.
Mhm.
And whenever they were trying to like explain to us certain concept about why things are this way and not the other way, it was always in Bengali. But they also, this is the thing, that sometimes they also mix a little bit of Italian in there, uh, to say certain messages, because I feel like sometimes they felt we couldn't get the message across, but although we did, they would also use a little bit of Italian. But the main language for them was also Bengali, and they used us as a way to like, as a discipline and as an authority. I would say it was mainly Bengali.
Yeah. Do you still have like connections in Italy? Do you still have like family there, friends there, like a part of your life there?
Well, half of my heart is still there, I can tell you. I don't have any more family because they have all moved to UK.
Mm.
But I do have my high school friends there, and we talk to each other as I never left. So we send like audio messages every week where like I'm telling them about my day and they're telling me about what they did. So I am in contact with all my high school friends, and for me it's important, even though like we're far miles away, but we're very close with each other, no matter what. And so the distance, it doesn't trouble us in a sense, I would say, because even when I went back to Italy, I tried to make an effort to see them. And we do some video chats time to time, but we send audio, so it feels like I never left in that sense. But my family is in UK now, so they
Yeah.
have moved to UK. Yeah.
I looked at some of the videos you sent and some of the writing that you've done, and I picked up on the term that you used, third culture kid, and I've heard of this before, and I think it's such an interesting description. It's such an interesting and very, like, not fragile, but I know that it means something different to everybody else. So to not to everybody else. It means something different to everyone who defines themselves as a third culture kid. So, what does that mean to you to identify in that way? And what lessons or insights have you gained from being at this intersection of Bengali and Italian?
So you remember how I was telling you how my whole life I never felt like I belonged somewhere. I never felt like I was Bengali enough. I never felt I was Italian enough. And then I was speaking to someone who basically she actually lives in New York City and she's Bengali. And I was telling her about this, and then she was like, "Yeah, there's this concept called third culture kid." And I was like, "Let me just look into it." And that's what I was thinking, like, there are two cultures, which are the Bengali and the Italian one. And because I never felt like I belonged to either one of them, I was like, why not embrace both of them? So for me, it really just means self-acceptance. It's self-acceptance, but where I'm embracing both culture, and it's not because I feel it's the right way, but it's because I feel this is, for me, is how I feel about it. And so, like, I grew up with people telling me, no, you're Italian. And sometimes this would come from my Italian friends because they would tell me you're born in Italy. But then whenever they would tell me that, I was like, I don't feel 100% Italian, because I know aesthetically I look different. At home, I eat different things. I speak a different language. And then I remember that in my household, I was being told that I'm Bengali, or like from my Bengali friends, I was told that I was Bengali. And again, I was not okay with that, because I was like, you're telling half of the story. Like, I grew up in a very Western society, and affects how I am and shapes my identity, the way I believe in things, my beliefs, my values. And so with time, I actually started to embrace both cultures, and I started to accept myself for who I am and see that, I am able to bring two perspectives that not many people can bring, or maybe they can, but on their own way. And so for me, it was just really embracing both cultures and just accepting myself for who I am. And so now I actually tell people that I am Italian by birth and Bengali by blood. And I think that really defines me as a person.
I love that. I love that. And I'm so curious, and I guess that's, part of the reason why I started this show, because, I grew up in New York City, and I'm of one culture. I'm not of three cultures. And I think that, you always want what you don't have. You have curly hair, you want straight hair. You have straight hair, you want curly hair.
I
And I
know.
feel I
I know.
feel like, I'm very proud of my one culture and what I'm a part of, but I think that it's just like you have so many riches when you have two backgrounds, when you have two passports, when you have two, and I say the same, people that have like, one parent's from here, one parent's from another. And I always think to myself, like, I feel so sad because a lot of the stories that I hear from people say that, they were picked on, or they were bullied, or they felt left out, or they felt they didn't belong. And I'm like, I wish I was your friend. I don't understand how people cannot see like the abundance that you have when you can pull from so many places. And I think it makes one a richer person, not financially necessarily, but it makes your soul richer, it makes your soul deeper. And I just think it's so beautiful. I truly, truly do. You've learned all these languages in your life, and you said four and a half officially, four and a half. How do they play a role in your life? How do they shape your personality, and how do they contribute to where you've been, where you're going, or where you want to go in life?
I would say that the fact that I know so many languages, they make me like a global citizen, who can bring more than one perspective. And now I feel like because because now I live in Montreal, which is like a bilingual city, I also have that perspective as well. And I like the fact that I'm able to use almost all of them on an everyday basis, because I do get to still speak Bengali at home. Um, my friends are now here, but I speak to them almost every day, and I speak to them in Italian. I work in a place that it's basically bilingual, where we have to speak English and French, but I mainly speak French. And funny thing is that there are so many Italians in this workplace that also get to speak French with my coworkers. And of course, I use English pretty much on a daily basis when I'm like out and stuff like that. And of course, there is Spanish, which is more like for my passion, but it's something that I'm working on every day, because I do like listen to podcasts. I, watch stuff in Spanish. So that's something that I do want to eventually be able to tell people, yeah, I can speak Spanish. But I would say that all these languages, they really just open my mind, and maybe like you said, I feel like it is a richness, knowing multiple languages, having so many different backgrounds. I think it's an asset. It's not a liability. It just makes you very unique, I would say. And so I'm glad that I can actually tell people that, I can speak this many languages, and I think like in Canada, it's such a rich country in that sense that people like almost everyone knows more than one language. So it's a
Right.
very rich country in that sense as well. So I'm able to like integrate myself easily too, I would say.
Yeah. Now, why Spanish? How did Spanish become your passion?
I think inside of me, I'm like Latina. I don't know. Honestly, I think it's that, honestly. Like my dream is to like do some like volunteer humanitarian work in like Latin American country. And I just love the whole culture. It's like so warm and welcoming, and like I love how people are so friendly. I went to Punta Cana, I went to Mexico, and I loved it. I was in love with like the whole culture before, but I was even more in love when I was there. And so I don't know, it's just, you know how people say when you listen to Italian, it's like you're listening to music.
Mm.
I feel the same when it comes to Spanish. Like people are talking Spanish and I'm just like mesmerized. Yeah.
Has has Italian helped you at all in learning Spanish? Like, do
Yeah.
you feel okay?
It did, but it did and it did not because the fact that I know Italian and I know French. I remember that when I used to write essays in Spanish, I would just mix all the languages. So I was having a little bit of trouble in that. Yeah, I was having a little bit of trouble. Yeah.
I think that so I can speak Italian and I can speak French. Not very well, either of them. I am in the process of learning. Relearning, I should say, because when I lived in Italy, my Italian was a lot better. And now that I'm not in Italy and I don't get to speak with anyone every day, it's not very good. Um, but here in New York, there's such a large Spanish speaking population, and there's so much access to Spanish language everywhere. And especially if you're looking for it, like you can definitely find it. And I only took Spanish when I was in junior high school. Even I mix up Spanish into Italian, into French sometimes. And I'm like, how did this get here? Like, I haven't sat in a Spanish classroom in a very long time. Um, but I think like you can kind of you can kind of figure your way through it if it's just the pronunciation's a little different and sometimes the vocabulary is a little different, but um I wish you a lot of luck with learning Spanish. I think you can
Thank you.
I think you can do it. And it's so funny, like how you say about the way that you feel about like the Latin culture. That's how I feel about Italian culture. Like the times I've been to Italy, I'm like, but I'm aware how romanticized it becomes when it comes to speaking Spanish, like you said you can understand like podcasts and songs and things like that with Spanish and okay. Do you
Yeah.
do you have in Montreal, is there a Spanish speaking community that you can like be a part of or be close to?
Yeah, we do have a very big community of people that speak Spanish. And I feel like it keeps increasing for some reason. Because I remember when I first came to Canada, it wasn't. I don't recall hearing many people speaking Spanish. But in the recent years, I feel like when I'm on the street, I can hear more and more people speaking Spanish. And in the workplace that I was working before, we had a huge community of people speaking Spanish, a huge one. So we do have a very big community. Like I would say, like our biggest communities are, of course, the Asian one, the South Asian one. You have the Italian one, and of course, you have people that speak that speak Spanish. And I think they're all coming from like in the Central America or South America, and they're all moving here. So there is a very big community, and yeah, so I do have a chance to like practice with them. I just haven't found the right person to practice with. So far I'm like relying on my podcast, but I would say like I understand majority of it when I listen to them.
Aside from Spanish, do you have any plans to learn any other languages in the future?
To be honest, I haven't got that far to think of a six language. Is it six? Yes, a sixth language. Um, yeah, I haven't got that far. Like I think like I have a more like short-term to medium-term goal, which is to, perfect my Spanish. I don't know, maybe like Korean, that could be an option. I don't know, but I will see. I haven't really give thought to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, as far as Bangladesh, have you visited? Have you visited recently?
Not recently, but
Okay.
it's been really long time since I've been there. I've been there 4 times. Two times I was really young. I barely remember anything. And then I went back again when I was a teenager. And I have very good memories about it. I just like I love how people are happy in the simplicity of things and people are happy with really minimal things. That was something that I really appreciated. And I do think that it is a country that is progressing and it's improving and it's developing in like many ways. And so I feel like every time I go, there's something different. But it's been
Yeah.
like long time since I've been there. But I do
Yeah.
have like fond memories of it. Yes.
Yeah. When you go, when you have been to Bangladesh and you're communicating, do you notice how the Bengali that you speak changes, or is it any different from, what you hear on the street or, you know, interacting with friends or family there?
It changes, definitely. I would say that what happens is when I first go there, like I have a little bit of like, I don't know, difficulty. Sometimes I feel like I'm not able to express myself, but then it starts to get better. So the longer I say, the better I feel it becomes. And so people know it when you're not from the place. Like even though you're
Mm,
Bengali, they somehow know it because of how you look, of the accent that you have, even when you're speaking Bengali. So they know it that you're not from there. And so yeah, it definitely becomes better. And I think even in Bangladesh, like depending in where you are, they all speak a different dialect. Like
yeah.
it's different dialect. So I also speak a different dialect as well. And I feel like every time I go there, it just gets better. Like I come back that it's a bit more improved.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Let's talk about food.
Mm-hmm.
Um, another one of my favorite things.
Mine too.
So I can only imagine Bangladesh, Bangladesh and Italian, Bangladeshi and Italian food, maybe in the same household, maybe in the same family, maybe at the same dinner table. What are we having? What is it like? What flavors are we experiencing?
So one thing that you need to know about the Bengali food is that we eat a lot of spices. So everything is very spicy, like
Hmm.
literally. And we usually have the main dish is rice. So in every household, you will see like white rice, and then you have to eat the rice with either chicken, vegetables, fish. And usually you have like the main dish, which is the rice, and then you have like 10 different other dishes, and usually it's different kind of like fishes. So it's very like fish based. The Bengali culture, we do eat a
Yeah.
lot of fish.
Hmm.
And then of course you have meat, so you have beef, you have chicken, then you have, of course, as I said, fish, you can have shrimps, you have different types of fishes, and then you have vegetables, you also have lentils. So in technically, when you're like eating at someone's place who's Bengali, you're supposed to be eating all of them. You have to try at least all of them. And of course, you have the main dish, and then you also have a salad. And it's a culture that is like rich in color. Like every dish is very colorful and it's very flavorful.
Hmm.
And we use a lot of spices, as I said. Whereas if you're in an Italian household, you mainly see like pasta, but we also eat rice as well. So you have like risotto, you have different kinds of risotto, you have different kinds of pasta, you have lasagna. We also eat fish, but it's a cuisine that is not spicy.
Yeah.
It's not spicy at all, but it's also very colorful and it's also very nutrition. So in that sense, they have this thing in common of being like very colorful, but one is spicy and the other one is non-spicy basically. And my household, basically, my parents, of course, they will always eat like Bengali food, but because I was so used, like I grew up in all my friends were Italian, and I grew up like at school they would serve us Italian food. I would always come back home and complain that there was no pasta at home. So basically, what we would do, we would balance it out. So let's say maybe in the morning we would have like for lunch we would have Bengali food, and then during dinner we would have Italian food. So we would have pasta.
Ooh.
So that's how we like try to balance it out. And then let's say weekend we would do like pizza in the evening, and then we would do, let's say, rice in the morning for lunch. So that's how we would basically do it. However, like if you go, so this is another thing is that in some Bengali households they also eat pasta, but the pasta they make, it's
Hmm.
spicy.
I love a
Yeah,
spicy
it's a
pasta.
spicy pasta. Yeah.
I'm a fan.
But the thing is, it's not served for dinner. It's actually served, let's say, as a snack in the afternoon.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So you don't eat a lot of it. It's a very small portion of pasta. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it a short pasta or a long pasta?
Um,
Or does it matter?
it doesn't matter, but they use noodles basically. They use noodles or spaghetti. It depends. It depends. It depends on the household. But some people they use like they also use like normal pasta, and it's served in a small bowl. Like just you are supposed to have it as a snack, so it's not a huge plate, but it's spicy.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a dish that you can think of, maybe one that you've just made up on your own that takes an Italian and a Bengali flavor together, like on a sandwich or on a like a pizza topping or something like that?
No, there is no such thing for me because no, there is no such thing, especially because here in Canada, people put the pineapple on the pizza and I think it's illegal. So whenever I think about mixing two things, I'm like, no, there's no such thing as that. My issue is that I make everything Italian. Like
Mhm.
I make let's say Asian food and I make it Italian. For some reason, I put like tomatoes out of nowhere. So I have this tendency of Italianizing. I don't know if that's the way to say every
Yeah,
single thing that I make. Yeah,
I
this is
like
my
that.
issue.
I'll be honest. I've had pineapple on pizza. It's not bad, but I still think that it's not okay. Like
No.
it's not okay. I personally I don't like toppings on pizza anyway. I just think pizza's perfect as it is with it's the perfect simple food. You don't need to put buffalo chicken on it and, you know,
I
corn
agree.
and salad and stuff. So, I mean, that's just me. A lot of people disagree with me, and that's okay. Um, but so you'd say that you Italianize a lot of dishes, which is amazing. How do you do that? What does that look like? What does that taste like?
I usually put like I said before, I put like tomato sauce or tomatoes, or sometimes I even put like parmesan when I'm making like Asian noodles. I don't know. I'm like crazy that way. It just tastes so good. So I put like cheese or tomatoes in every single thing. And I also have this tendency of like eating sushi with a fork.
Mm.
That's another thing that I don't think that's the way to do it, but like even there, I'm like using a fork when I'm eating it. And so like I think I was making like ramen noodles once and I put like Parmesan cheese on top of it. I know it sounds crazy, but I was like, you know what? It was good.
No, that sounds good though.
It was good. Yes.
I love Parmesan, so, Um, do you have a favorite Bengali dish? Do you have a favorite Italian dish?
So favorite Italian dish, I also like like simple things. I love pizza margherita and I
Mhm,
love pasta al pesto, which is the one with the green pesto.
mhm.
When it comes to Bengali food, okay, I also like simple things. I like a chicken curry with white rice, basically. That's it.
Yum. That sounds good. But no chicken curry on pizza.
Please.
When I was in Palermo, I just remembered when I was in Palermo, I had an arancine of
Uh-huh.
chicken curry
No,
arancine. And I was like, I shouldn't do this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And it wasn't for me.
no,
It
no.
wasn't for me. I don't think that particular fusion
No.
meal worked for that. So tell me, one last food thing. If you we didn't even talk about dessert. Like, are you a dessert person?
Am I dessert person? When it comes to Italian dessert, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I
But not
love
Bengali sweets.
this is the thing. They're extremely sweet that I avoid them.
Yeah,
But
they're
some of
very
them are
sweet.
really good. Some
Yeah.
of them like are really good. They're dipped in like sugar. This is why I avoid them because they're dipped in sugar. But I love my Italian dessert. Like I'm a big fan of Italian desserts. Like I love cannoli,
Mm.
spaghettelle, and this is another thing. Like in Italy, when you go to a pastry shop, you just have so many different kinds of like pasticcini. I don't find this anywhere else, and I'm like I miss that about Italy. So I love the Italian pastries, and I think they're all good. Like I'm not being biased. Like I'm not trying to be biased on this, but they are really good. Like from a objective point of view.
Yeah, they are really good. And
Yeah.
I like them in Italy because they're sweet, but they're not too sweet. And I think like cannoli, for example, here they're so sweet. And in Italy, it's like you can have two if you want to, but here I get through half of one and I'm like, I'm getting a
Hmm.
headache. This is too sweet for
Yeah.
me. Tell us about your book, tell us about your blog, tell us about what you're working on, your mission with culture and language, and anything else that you want to promote or you want to share. This is your time. Let us know all of that and let us know where we can find you.
Sure. So since I have a big passion for languages, I do teach on italki. I teach both English and Italian. I mainly give like conversation lessons for people that want to practice their speaking and pronunciation. And I do tend to share that passion a lot by like telling about my culture and also learning from other people's culture, because the people that I meet are all over the world. And I do have a YouTube channel, and it's called Urmi. And in this channel, I talk a little bit about like I give tips on how to study for this program called the CFA program, which is a program in the financial world. I talk about languages as well. I give tips on how to learn a language. I talk about public speaking, which is also another passion that I have. And then I have a blog, which I created 3 years ago. And in this blog, I basically write articles about public speaking, career, how to learn a language. And I mainly like my main goal is to target women, but it's really open to everyone. And I do share a little bit about my story. And my blog is called myways.ca. I do have a book as well, which is available on Amazon, and it's called Discovering Your Identity, A Rebirth from Interracial Struggle. And basically it talks about a little bit what we spoke today, which is about how it was for me to grow up in Italy, in such a Western open-minded society versus growing up in a household that was very Bengali. So I talk about different episodes that happened in my life and how I was able to, embrace both of them. And of course I do a lot of volunteering activities, and all the volunteering activities that I do are mainly related to empower women in every aspect of their life. And I think the reason why I'm doing this, I think so often I'm asked why I'm doing this, and it's because it's drawn from my own personal experience where usually I tend to grow up, I did grow up in a very double standard society, and where women are seen differently than men. And this is where I'm like, it doesn't work like that. And so I
Yeah.
try to empower women in that sense through my volunteering activities. So that's another thing that I also do.
Yeah, that's terrific. I will
Okay.
share the links to all of that in the show notes for this episode so that people who are listening can click and find you right away.
Thank you.
Urmi, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this conversation. I really enjoyed hearing your story and learning about your story through languages and through culture. And thanks for taking the time to talk to me today.
Thank you.
I like to end each episode with the same question. And that is, do you have any jokes, popular sayings, tongue twisters, cool slang words, idioms, words of wisdom, or words of advice in Bengali or in Italian to share?
Okay, I'm gonna share an expression in Italian, and since we talked about food, I think you'll like this one.
Okay.
Buono come il pane.
Buono come il pane.
Uh-huh. Do you know what it means?
Uh, buono means good, like bread.
Yes. So the translation is good as bread, but what
Uh-huh.
it means metaphorically, it's like if someone says you are buono come il pane, it just means that you are someone who has a heart of gold, who's very generous, and who's very kind and nice. And so that's what it means. So if someone is telling you that, it's actually a compliment. So buono come il pane. Yeah.
Buono come il pane. I'm
Yeah.
gonna use that one. I like it.
Yeah. It's a nice one. Yeah. I have two more.
Okay.
So ti sta pennello.
Ti sta pannello?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. If you do not know it, that's fine.
I do not know.
Okay, it means it fits you like a paintbrush.
Pannello is paintbrush?
Yes.
Ah, I did not know that word.
And so basically, if someone is telling you to stop Penello, they are basically giving you a compliment because you probably just wear something and it's fitting you so well that it feels like it was like painted on your
Ooh.
body. That's what it means.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And I have one last one.
Okay.
Non avere peli sulla lingua.
Slower, please.
Non avere
Non avere
i peli sulla lingua.
I pili sulla lingua?
So it means you don't have hair on your tongue.
Mm.
And so what it means is that you are someone who's saying things like in a straightforward manner, and you don't care too much about how someone will feel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what it means.
That was an Italian test today. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. Yeah, I have a long way to go, as you can tell, as you can hear.
you still have a good pronunciation though. You just have to learn the expression, but you have a good pronunciation.
Grazie, grazie
Prego.
mille.
Prego.
Um, thank you so much again for this conversation. And before I let you go, do not think about this too hard. So you speak 4.5 languages. In any of those 4.5 languages, after you've had a conversation with someone for quite some time and you're about to go your separate ways, what is the best way to say goodbye? First one that comes to your mind.
Alla prossima.
Alla prossima. Alla prossima, Urmi. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much for this conversation, and I will be talking to you soon. Bye.
Bye.